This is Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Pushing you to year-on-year progression. With your host, Ross McKinley.
Yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically Trained, the podcast, coming at you with a completely different kind of episode today. We're live on Zoom, trying to get that camera right so that we both look great, but it is the morning in the UK here, and anyone who knows me will know that I must be getting up for a special person to get up at this time to do a fucking interview. So, my good friend Blaine Clancy, he is over in New Zealand, 11 hours behind Blaine, I think that's right.
Yeah, we're 11 hours ahead here, lad, yeah.
11 hours ahead, there you go, so it's at night over there. So, Blaine, I've known Blaine for many years now, maybe it's 8 or 9 years or more. We met when I was at university. Blaine is a fantastic strength and conditioning coach, and he's got some great thoughts, and I thought it would be awesome to get him on today to talk about his coaching, the teams he's worked with, the things he's done, but also his travelling and his approach, because I think he's got a cool story. So, Blaine, take a couple of minutes, if you like, or however long you like, for the listeners who don't know you yet, where you're from, what you've been doing, what's the crack, away you go.
Well, I was going to say they might not understand me, but if they can understand you, they can understand me. From Northern Ireland, bit of uni up in Newcastle, up your end, Northumbria, the old sports science route, master's degree, Leeds, Beckett Uni, around that area we met, master's degree there in sports biomechanics, internships there, so on the old S&C journey, when I went to do my master's there at Leeds Beckett, working with rugby teams, netball teams, all sorts of 6 a.m.ers, like you were saying. Got an internship at Yorkshire, right place, right time. Enjoyed that for a year. Again, after that, right place, right time. They offered me a job afterwards, and one of the other guys left, and enjoyed the old cricketing experience for, I think it was 4 years I was there in Leeds, grafting. And then that's like any job come to a head, and you want to move away somewhere, and I fancied a bit of a change and a bit of warm weather, so I pissed off to Hong Kong for 7 months over there. Slightly different job, and sort of in the more public personal training / operating a facility as a manager type job over there, which was hectic. Honestly, I was going to say one of the tallest there. Can I say that? Why did I say that? Shit, I got to be careful here. But yeah, that was a crazy experience. Shit, learnings from that. And unfortunately, only 7 months there, but gig came up in New Zealand, and if you live in the UK and all the good things you hear about New Zealand, you can't really turn stuff like that down, can you? So 4 years here in cricket as well, so same level as in England. Over here working with a regional team, some of the international lads as well, which has been great. One of our lads is over there with you guys in the UK at the minute, so be interesting to see how he goes. But yeah, that's been the 4 years now, and up until this point, it's been pretty long, summed up there in a couple of minutes, but a few different journeys along the way and a lot of stories underneath all that.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that. Where in New Zealand are you now, mate? What part of New Zealand are you in?
So I'm based in Dunedin, which is like southeast. They say it's the deep south, the deep cold. You'd probably be familiar with Queenstown.
Yeah.
So I'm a 3-hour drive from Queenstown, so we're not far from there. So it's a beautiful part of the world, to be honest. But yeah, not as warm as some of the North Island.
Everyone always says, when you talk about travelling and stuff, everyone always says New Zealand's like meant to be one of the best places, don't they? Like, oh, you've got to see the views and the scenery, and that it's meant to be like really, really good. But I've never been personally, but I would like to one day, so we'll see. But in terms of you, mate, and this coaching journey that you've been on, if you like, and that you've spent fucking a lot of time in the game, what started for you? Like, what made you think, like, right, I want to get into S&C? What made you, I guess, obviously, because you haven't fell into it at all, have you? You've worked your way up the ladder, you've put the time in over several years to get where you are now. So why is that? Is it that you wanted to help athletes? Is it that you maybe wanted to be an athlete yourself? What's the background to that? Like, what kind of gives you a sense of fulfillment and drive to pursue it as you have?
Well, I hear a lot of people say this on podcasts and stuff, that they're a field athlete, which I've never been a field athlete. I've never been an athlete.
What a check.
I'm not really sure. It's just pretty much being a gym monkey at the start of it. You know what I mean? Through doing your A levels and business studies and stuff, you go to the gym, and then you feel all your A levels, and you got to do another course. You pick something to do with the gym. Yep. I did like a foundation degree in sports exercise and fitness, which got me into uni, and that was sort of how it got me into the sport really, because I always played a bit of soccer when I was younger, and you just liked sport, and you're thinking, shit, if I can work on sport for the rest of my life, then why wouldn't I want to do that?
Yeah.
Yes, it wasn't until I actually coached a bit of CrossFit at a time up in Newcastle, and
Yeah.
that some of the odd amateur like rugby players and stuff there, and I guess trying to help them and watching them on a Saturday and them feeling value of your input and seeing the smiles on their faces, that sort of got me into it. Like it is helping people at the end of the day. And like I say, from then right up until now, I say one of our lads is in England at the minute with the national team, and seeing the smile on his face when he knew he was getting selected.
Yeah.
Like, I think that journey it's almost your journey, but it's your athlete's journey that you're most invested in. And I think it's just seeing the rewards from that is got me sucked in from back then, which is 11 years ago now, and you're still seeing those every year, which is amazing.
Fantastic, awesome, love it. So something that we're gonna cover that when we get into the questions in a minute. But one of the big, I think one of the similarities I think with everyone so far, and I'm sure that there'll be some people that I talk to that this isn't the case, but with Blaine, why I thought he had such a cool story for everyone listening is I've known Blaine, like I say, since I was probably 2021, and I remember being at uni, Blaine doing his masters and then coaching the sports teams, netball I mentioned before, probably she could be with the women or whatever else, but there's netball in the morning and everything, and then my point here is that Blaine's done it for a very, very long time, and he was juggling several things to make it happen. And particularly in the beginning, or certainly wasn't the beginning really, I guess, when I met you, but I think you were working at Starbucks, Halo nightclub, I think, if that was right, and then and then you were also doing your strength and conditioning on top. So just confirm for us and for everyone listening how much you used to do back in the day, because was it 3 jobs, I think, or something like that?
Yeah, maybe more. I counted 4. I actually speak to some people about this the odd time now because I'm an old man, and if I don't get 10 hours sleep, I'm no good. Honestly, I remember vividly. There was 2 internships, so one at the uni and one at Yorkshire.
Yep.
And there was 2 part-time jobs that I was obviously have to earn if I'm not earning there. So literally, I remember living with Morgan as well. He was seeing me crawling in and out the door. I getting about 3 hours sleep, going from one job to the other.
Yeah.
I think my longest stint was 26 hours in a row.
Wow.
You're just on autopilot, which is not good. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't think I'd be here where I am now if I hadn't have done that.
Exactly.
I don't know how that didn't kill me, but
exactly. You found a way, didn't you? You found a way, and I think something for me. I remember when I first. How old are you now, Blaine?
33 now.
So I think when I first met you, would have been mid 20s or something. But I can remember thinking like, fucking hell, he's doing all these jobs still, and he's like 28, like 29. But then obviously in the end, like obviously that's the truth. Like I remember thinking like, fucking hell, he's working hard. But like the fact that you were still doing so many, I remember from probably my own insecurities and fears around thinking, wanting to get into a similar industry, like, fuck me, I hope I've got something like locked down by the time I'm like 28, by the time I was your age. But what I loved, and one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to you today, and I mentioned you before, is like the fact that you kept going with it, you'd done all that, and then it paid off, and you had these big moves, and you went away to Hong Kong and that, and you worked with the cricket, and then now you're where you are now. So it's class. I think it's a good story. But I think sometimes people don't appreciate it themselves. I said that to you. I think that you probably don't look at it like that, but you maybe never knew that I was looking at it from that point of view, thinking, fucking hell, that's mint that he's kept going with it. And I always use you in a lot of conversations where people say, oh, I've got a friend that does, that's been in Hong Kong and that mentioned that you're out in New Zealand. And I think it's really, really good. So awesome. That's the little.
Yeah, they say you make your own luck. And sometimes that's pretty true. Like you just got to be in the right places at the right time. And the more you work, the more places you're going to be in. So. Yeah.
Brilliant. Good. Well, that's the kind of the little intro, if you like, and we're going to keep with my normal format that's been working good with other guests. So we've got 5 main topics that I want to cover with Blaine today. Blaine also does a blog, which I don't think he thought that I actually read when I mentioned to him that I do, but I like reading, especially any of my friends, anyone that I've known over the years, the stuff they're doing. And Blaine's got a good little blog that he's been doing. I've been reading that, and I had a little read last night to try and get some more ideas for content and questions for today. So there's a few things we're going to talk about. So in the main part of the episode today, we're going to cover program hopping, Blaine's lessons from working with athletes and now his own sort of journey, because he's doing a little bit of powerlifting. He's a regional winner in powerlifting, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Imposter syndrome, which is something that I think everyone suffers with. We're going to discuss, is it real? What the fuck is it? His perseverance and journey to where he is now, which we've kind of covered in the beginning, but we're going to go into that again. We've got his lessons from traveling the world, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's next. And of course, we've got what's going to be the legendary quickfire round at the end, the little 10 minutes at the end. So starting off, mate, when I had a look through yesterday and I was looking for some more ideas to talk to you about today, something that I loved that you covered was the fact that probably through your own, I would say, your knowledge and your thirst for training, and the fact that you wanted to try different programs, I love when you read, and I'm sure the other lads do, when you see someone writing a paragraph and they mention there's several things that you've also looked at. So whether it's T-Nation and articles on there, but you are talking about the Smolov squat program, 531, Jim Wend, like all these different programs that you've tried, and some of the listeners might have heard of these programs as well. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that Blaine had wrote on his blog, I've tried all of these programs as a young lad, and I was jumping and I was essentially program hopping, and it ended up making him weaker, and he didn't get as many gains because despite all the knowledge, he ended up just jumping from program to program. So program hopping, Blaine, what is it? Why did you do it? And what's the crack with that? Talk us through it.
Yeah, well, I guess I've started in the T-Nation route. I mean, you're always looking for them abs, aren't you? So that's where I started on that.
Yeah.
The 531, it works. The small offs, it works. The juggernauts is which I got good gains from. It works. But I guess my learnings from those programs, there's always little nuances in the programs that you learn and put into other programs, but they're all made and written to sell, aren't they? So people buy them for instant success. They're quick fixes and they're not specific to you. So you do it for a bit. It's like, fuck, I'm going nice here. And then you get a niggle or you're like, well, I'm bored. So then you do the next one. Oh, it's like, shit, I'm going nicely here. And then you get a niggle again. You come back a bit again. So you're never making those consistent gains. And that's what I find from all those. And I did get strong, but there's no real sustainability across the whole plan. And I think for me, from those, I mean, when you're training yourself, or for me, if you're, I'd say now I'll go on to the next topic, but training an athlete, you want a slow burner. So there's always something from the previous program. You're probably going to take 90% of the previous program into the next program and the next program. And it's never going to be 100% full tilt all the time, which I think the programs that we hop from are. So like a 531 is max effort. You have a week off, then you go max effort again in Juggernaut, then you go max effort again, and you end up breaking. So I guess that I tie that into the dieting process as well, because I've tried all them as well, the diet hopping, that nothing ever, those small blocks of consistency never dial into long-term consistency. Does that make sense? Because you're always trying one or the other and expecting a different gain and outcome from it.
So do you think that's because of an eagerness to improve quicker? Is that maybe like a belief that you should be getting results quicker that you're changing program? Is it boredom? Like, why do you think? Because I always think it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this. I think that the more advanced you are, particularly the lads that work with me, I think that in the beginning they want to do a new program every 4 weeks, every 4 to 6 weeks, and they don't realise actually that can be detrimental to their gains, because they're changing the rep range, they're changing the exercise, they're changing the order of exercises, and actually in terms of progressive overload, they can plateau. They're not even necessarily reaching a plateau to break through. They're just getting the first 1 and 2 weeks of a program, as everyone knows, you've got the learning effect. You maybe going to get to a point where you're finally going to properly apply progressive overload, and then they're bored of it and they want to change program. You change program and you're kind of almost regressing or underneath the weight you should be doing again, and you're never getting those really tough, hard, challenging sets. So why do you think that is that people do that? And how long, from your point of view, mate, because I'd love to get with what you do with athletes, how long would you say, there's never going to be a perfect, but program-wise, what would you say people should stick to a program for based on that then? I think
there's no certain length of time a program should last for. I think you've got to listen to your body and a lot of those things. Because this maybe might be jumping onto the next topic, but in terms of those quick fixes and quick programs, which you all search about, I think we got to look at these systems in terms of training athletes and obviously ourselves like tubes of toothpaste. Have you heard this analogy where
go on.
No, so for me, those like a 5-3-1 program, you want to I want to get on the bar and I want to put 50 kilos in my squat, and I think some of those are designed to try and maximize gains. But for me, that's squeezing the whole toothpaste, the whole tube out.
Right.
So when you go to your program, there's nothing left to squeeze. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Kind of get it back in once it's out with a toothbrush, can you?
Exactly. So, and that kind of it kind of comes to that point. It's the same as picking the low hanging fruit. You want to stick on the same plan and maybe change, maybe keep the same program, keep it boring, change a couple of reps, then progress there, then change and put an extra set in or change the rest. So change one small variable and squeeze a little bit of toothpaste out of the tube each time. Mm-hmm. And I think program hopping, you're just squeezing the shitload out, and then you're trying another big program like a juggernaut, and then you're trying to squeeze it all out again, and you're trying to squeeze it all out again. And I think that's where people get bored and injured, because they get all their gains quick and then like, shit, where do we go now? We squeezed this toothpaste out. And I guess those programs can last for 8 weeks, 2 weeks, 10 weeks. It depends how slowly you're squeezing the toothpaste. Does that make sense?
100%. I think something that when you met us, when I used to have Edge, when I used to have my gym back in the day, I used to spend a lot of time explaining to lads not to do that 1 rep max on bench every week. Like, you know, it's like commercial gym people come in, they go, I've done 100 last week, I'm going to do 105 this week, I'm going to do 110. I'm like, mate, like, you've maxed out last week. Like, people deadlifting, they might hit a 1 rep max like 2-3 times a year. When you're actually stronger, you're not ready to PB all the time, and it's not the most effective way to get stronger. What you find is, I think, with a lot of beginners to intermediate lads, is that the reason they're putting weight on the bar every week is just because of that learning effect. And actually what they're finding is that they've always probably been roughly that strong, but they're refining their form and they're just getting closer to the actual potential. And then when they get there, they find it really hard, and that's when they get bored, when actually you want to get to that level quicker and then practice everything at that sort of those reps that counter the progressive overload level, where you maybe only adding 1 rep a week, or 1.25 a side, or you're working on the tempo or the coaching cues. But the problem is, that's not sexy, is it? That's not fun for people to be able to say, I've added 5 kilos or 10 kilos to my bench. People don't like, I think even more so now, they don't like necessarily adding the small plates to the bar. They want to be jumping up at 5, at 10, a 20 each side all the time. They don't want to micro load, which is stupid.
I like what you said there about the technique portion as well, because for me, that sets up the foundation to make more gains down the road.
Yes.
Like I look at a lot of lifting, like powerlifting, it's a skill. It's all the lifts are skills. It's not about the amount of weight in the bar, it's a skill. And that's almost lengthening the length of the tube. So you get your skill right and it'll come in the future. And I think getting bored as well and slapping the weights on the bar, I think social media ruins that for people. That's why people want to change programs and exercises, and I get guilty of as well as a coach. Fuck, let's get that exercise in because it looks good. But I think the way it should be now, like program hopping for me was a good learning experience, because I got strong at times and I regressed and whatnot, but now I look at it and go, I'd rather put 2 kilos on the bar every month for the rest of my life and stay injury free than add 20 kilos on the bar each week and get injured and then do it again and then do it again and then do it again, because I'll enjoy training way more if I'm not injured.
Exactly. I think a good lesson with this is, you can always, on the day with deadlift, with your bench even, you can bounce it. Squats are hard, but all these lifts, whatever you're doing in the gym, not just for powerlifting but for bodybuilding, for lads that are trained normally, everyone wants to feel like they're improving, but it shouldn't be trying to improve at all costs, because anyone 1 week can mong the weight up. You can bounce it off your chest, you can get that PB 1 week, but you've got to think, and we've touched on this in previous episodes, for those of you maybe go back to the episodes about training, you've got to keep all the mechanisms of hypertrophy ticked, if you like. You've got to think about your mechanical tension, your metabolic stress and cellular swelling, your muscle damage. Are you incurring those? Are you creating enough of a stimulus to achieve them? The likelihood is that, yes, 1 week on bench, you can put 10 kilos, you can have a big jump, you can feel mint about doing it, but if you're lowering the weight to halfway and then having no eccentric tempo and essentially bouncing off your chest, yes, there's a chance that your shoulder blades will realign and you might just be able to force out that rep, but the tensions come off your chest, and the problem is you're not going to be able to do it the next few weeks, and you're actually self-sabotaging in the long run. Blaine's exactly right what he said there. If you can take the approach of keeping the tempo, the form, the coaching cues right, everything that you know you should be doing, and adding 1.25 to each side every single week. But or not even every single week, even every other week, once a month, if you think whatever level you're at now with your bench, your squat, your deadlift, on any machine, if you can keep all those cues the same, all of those variables right, and then slowly improve, you're going to be much, much stronger, and you're going to be stimulating hypertrophy and ticking all your boxes. I always find it's much, much harder to tell lads who have got shit technique, like, yeah, they can bench 140 or they can, 320s a side or whatever, but actually it's a close grip bench and they're using their triceps a lot and their shoulders come out and maybe they're dropping it from halfway, and then they wonder why they've got big shoulders but they haven't got a chest, and it's like because you're not engaging your chest when you're benching. There's always a reason, and you'll know that with your coaching, Blaine. Every exercise, every weak point, when you look at someone train, you can normally pinpoint like where or why that's come about through a lack of proper execution. And I think that that's something that people miss in the chase for more weight on the bar, especially for social media nowadays, and that pressure. And then in the long run, they wonder why they've got weak body parts or something they can't engage, and it's because they've not spent the time drilling form properly. Awesome. I'll tell you one cool little story for everyone before we get onto this, and this isn't really a good story to validate what we've just talked about, but the legendary gym in Newcastle that I used to train in, McVicker's, it's probably my favourite gym of all time. I love it. Very hardcore, new monkey plane, fucking class, proper, it's mint. It's peak Newcastle, full of chavas, people going rides, everyone's mega strong. There's a few lessons from that gym. The first one's a funny one. In that gym, they keep the 1.25 kilo plates, the tiny plates, behind the desk, and if you want them, you have to go and ask for them. They don't leave them out in the gym. That's just to wind people up, because they know that people are going to need them, but everyone there is that big, full of gear and that, it's full of right strong cunts, and they keep them behind the desk, and you've got to go and ask Neil, you say, can I have the 1.25s, and you'll go, what for? You're not putting them on that leg press, are you? It's what happens, it's hilarious, it's brilliant. But I mean, I'm sure, Blaine, you've been in some gyms with that kind of training environment, and everyone trains mega hard, but it's just funny, some gyms, the etiquette that they have.
The point there, what you mentioned, is all the big guys on gear don't need the 1.25s because they just might, but it relates good to a lot of us normal people who aren't on gear. We got to take it slow. So that comes back to the point again of taking it slow. Yeah,
it is. It's funny. And what I was going to say with that was, to sum up on this before we move on to the next question, was Blaine's exactly right about us taking it slower. And what I learned in that gym, and this is why I think everyone should be, if you're the strongest in your gym, go to a different gym, get out your comfort zone, meet new people and that. And gyms, although at first I think sometimes for some people it might be intimidating and that, some of the best mates I've made have been in gyms. You make friends for life. And the one thing I would say, wherever you go in gyms, and I learned this from McVicker's in particular, right? There's always going to be someone stronger than you. Always. In that gym, there was just freaks. There's people squatting like 260 in Air Maxes, like just not bothered, just doing it, like just crazy. Loads of people there can deadlift 300, pressing 90 kilo dumbbells in each hand. Mental. Mega awesome, right? But in that gym, there was this respect between people, and why I ended up getting on everyone was because it was like, yeah, I'm not squatting the most, but I'm squatting till my fucking hamstrings touch my calves. Yeah, I'm not deadlifting, the most, but I'm doing it dead stop, my form's good, whatever else. The same with the dumbbells, and I had like a respect for the gym. I wasn't throwing stuff around, because whilst 40 or 50 kilo dumbbells might be a PB for me, it puts some respect on you, and it makes you have respect for everyone else in the gym, knowing that I'm not going to fucking dump these dumbbells down and go on like a cunt after my set, because someone else is going to come over and just pick 70s up and shoulder press them. And I've been making on like 50s is a big deal for dumbbell chest press. The same with squats. It's like, so it gives you this sense of like, listen, there's always very, very mad petri dish of gym members, if you like. And it was like, there's people literally in this gym that are some of the strongest people I've ever seen. And they just, when they finish the set, they just put the dumbbells down on their knees, or they ask someone else in the gym nicely, will you give us a hand with these dumbbells? Which, looking at the lads in there, you probably wouldn't think they do. Everyone helps each other, everyone supports each other, it's class. But there's a respect among the lifters in there and the bodybuilders of like, is that person doing it properly or not? Or are they doing it for social media? And one of the things that I love to this day, I actually was speaking to Neil, the owner, about yesterday. They put posts up all the time complaining about people doing videos in the gym and videographers and Instagram and stuff. And he's like, this is it's a performance center, not a performance center. And if you want to do anything like that, is fucking go on Instagram. It's not fucking theatre and all this. It's class. So it's it's good. So in terms of the next question, Blaine, we'll move on. I'm happy with that program.
Just side note, I've been to the New Monkey in Sunderland back in 2006.
Did you?
Yeah, 2006, me and a mate went over.
Oh my god. What was it? What was it like? What was it like? Good.
Fucking mental.
Anyone who knows anything about the Northeast rave scene, New Monkey's big time. So
and I still find some of the tunes on Spotify, and I'm in the gym.
The class, man. The class. Anyone from down south or anywhere else in the country, if you want some good tunes to lift to, people will be like, what the fuck? If you search New Monkey on YouTube, that's what we'll listen to in Newcastle. And in that McVicker's gym, Blaine, you wouldn't get it in most gyms. That's on in the gym. That's what's on in the gym. It's fucking class. Right, next question. So we've kind of touched on this already, but just lessons from coaching athletes versus yourself. And Blaine's recently, well, not recently, but he's obviously trained hard for years. But you've got into powerlifting since you've been in New Zealand, haven't you, mate? And you've competed in that. So tell me a little bit about that and maybe the lessons you've learned. What I want to kind of touch on, yeah, mate, you know, everyone knows that you're a coach. Most people I speak to is going to be a coach and have some skills. What I wanted you to cover was maybe the differences now that you're competing in powerlifting versus like the approach you take with your athletes and stuff. So do you want to touch on that?
I guess in the powerlifting space, I've got a coach. So my good mate Marquis out of Cast Iron Strength in Edinburgh. Have a look at him. He's fucking good stuff. So he's my coach. I've had him for 3 years now. And to be honest, before I get into it, I'd highly recommend everybody get a coach. Even if you're a coach, get a coach, because it just changes everything. I mean, you think about the learnings of my own training. If I go back and look at some of the stuff I was doing, I wasn't testing anything. I wasn't retesting it or looking at my weaknesses. I was skipping the front squats because I hate them. You know, all that kind of stuff, like just skipping the bits that I needed. But now having a coach, he's giving me stuff that I hate, but I need. There's constant communication. There's video analysis. Like it's a game changer. And in terms of how I train the powerlifting compared to how I train the lads, I think it gives me a bit of experience to talk to the lads. Like, look, I try and lift heavy tin 4 times a week. This is how I know what you're feeling when you're below the bar. You know what I mean? So it gives it that bit. And then they'll say that I don't do any running, so I can't tell them how they feel when they run.
Yeah.
But I think it's because sometimes the internal dialogues I have with myself when I'm warming up, when I'm recovering, when I'm going to bed at 9, trying to fucking sleep because I know if I sleep shit, I'll feel like shit. Things like that where it's not even the coaching or prescription, it's more the outside bits of that where I really carry that into how I coach the athletes. Is that, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And, you know, it is goes back to the whole, which we talked about, the toothpaste. So we have athletes from all different types of fucking ages and training histories and stuff. And it is the toothpaste analogy comes back to that again.
Yep.
And what I've learned from having a powerlifting coach and just being involved with the powerlifting circles, it's more about that. It's more about the technique and like lift X, Y, and Z at an RPE 7 for a bit. Don't kill yourself. Then do this at an RPE 8 and work your way up. Slow burner. Like I definitely call it a slow burner. And that's something that I've learned from my recent 3 years training and having a coach that I've definitely taken into training my athletes.
Brilliant.
Because I definitely do feel that before, when I was a young coach and I was program hopping, I probably program hopped with my athletes too much. And that's one of the learnings I've taken.
Oh, that's interesting. So you think since you've settled down as well, your approach with the athletes has changed?
100%. And not only that from my own programming, but social media, rife. Like a lot of the stuff you learn from Twitter and Instagram, you're all constantly thinking, shit, that'd be good for my athlete. When I program, I stay off social media for 3 or 4 days when I write my programs at the minute. Because then I'm just locked in, like, what does this guy need in this right time, rather than seeing some fucking medicine ball toss over a hurdle or something.
Instagram needs.
Yeah, does that make sense? So it's just
100%, mate. I think that's a really good point.
So I think a lot of my own coaching has been content led, whereas my work with my athletes is content led, but we have to understand the context of the sport they're playing and how it interacts with what they need. So content, hamstring, context, right, needs his hamstring to sprint or turn in that situation.
I think something what's brilliant there is linking that together. When we talked about program hopping earlier and maybe giving people the belief, and this is for everyone is that when you've got a program, when you want to have that belief that you should continue with it and not program hop, one of the things that will give you that belief is maybe the specificity. So actually having a coach that's working specifically with you, or a program that they've said, yeah, I think this is good because you know what, like you want to work on your chest. Well, I'm not going to just give you a generic program that isn't necessarily hitting chest. You're going to need a program that is focused on chest, and then we're going to make those changes. And the same for your athletes. And I think that having that little personal touch and attention to detail will be both for you and your own training, but then maybe for your athletes and for me, for my clients. That's why I like being present. I don't do anything online where it's just a one-off program where you're not working with me. Even the 28-day challenge, it's a predetermined program that it's a fucking tough 28 days. But every single person in the group's there to ask questions. So if they're struggling with a particular exercise, we can change it. And we guide you through the process, because that is what keeps you in when it gets hard in the long run, I think, is knowing that it's for you and that you're going to get results. That's interesting, mate, about how it's changed your own coaching approach.
Definitely, you got to coach the athlete, not the program. So fuck the program. If you can change the program for the athlete, you can't change the athlete for the program. Basically, that comes down to it.
Brilliant. Some good quotes there. Would you say then, mate, that with that, do you think that sort of having that attention to detail, that's what kind of, say I'm an athlete, right? I don't maybe necessarily understand, or some of the lads listening, they're not necessarily understanding strength and conditioning or our level of the training yet. They might want to, but then when they get to that point, how would you sell to them? So let's say I'm bored of a program. I've done 4 weeks or 5 weeks. I'm starting to get bored. How would you make changes to the program? Would you maybe give us a talk about why I should stick with it? What would you do? What do you think is a trick to longevity, if you like, or avoiding that program hopping?
I might ask my coach here, because genuinely I've had the same exercises for fucking 3 years in a row. But I think that it all boils down to like little mini goals on each block. For example, you say you've got, I don't know, say you've got a trap bar deadlift, for example. And you do, say, 3 sets of 6 at RPE 8, then you do 3 sets of 8 at RPE 8, then you do 3 sets of 10 at RPE 8. You've progressed 2 reps each week at the same RPE, so you're probably even if you're lifting the same weight, you've lifted 2 extra reps at the RPE. Then the next program, you might, right, we'll increase by 2 reps more, but we'll change the RPE again.
I'll just stop you 2 seconds. Just for anyone listening who doesn't know, RPE means rate of perceived exertion. So that is peak powerlifting. It's a little bit like how CrossFitters have their own terms. RPE is very powerlifting, but it's basically a way for people to rate how hard each set is. I'm a 10 out of 10 RPE every set guy. So, but go on, Blaine, continue, mate.
I think the way I sort of mention RPE is, if it's an RPE 8 for me, that means, right, I'm going to leave 2 reps in the tank. If it's a 9, I use 1 rep in the tank. So when we say squeeze the toothpaste out, if I go at 10s every time, like you do, I'm going to have no toothpaste left. So the slow burner. But I think if we include like the same program, it could have the same exercises for 6 months. But if you're changing the sets, the reps, the rest, and the RPE, and you're seeing progression on the weight every 3-4 weeks, I think it's just seeing them small changes that have to keep you involved in the game. And there is a point where you do get bored. Like, it happens. I think depending on what your goal focus is. So for me, as an example, say squat's one of my competition lifts. But say strengthening my glutes isn't a competition lift. So I might have different exercises that I might rotate every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to try and work on my hip extensors. So it might be a hip thrust, it might be an RDL, it might be a Bulgarian split squat, it might be walking lunge, whatever it might be. So you can still have the same outcome goal as strengthening my hip extensors for my squat, but I can change the exercise in that. So I can change the exercise every 3 weeks as well, as long as I've still got the same goal at the end. That makes sense. So you could probably rate that to chest if it's a bench press. If my triceps are weak in the bench press, I might do, for 3 weeks as assistance, I might do a close grip bench press. Then I might do, for the next 3 weeks, I might do a French press. I might do some tricep extensions the next plan. So you can change the exercise when you need to as well. Only if it is directly correlating to your main goal.
I was just going to say, it's all linked into your main goal, isn't it? And I think that's something that's really important, is that, even some PTs in the gym, don't get us wrong, I don't think that people listening to this will, but so there's some PTs you go and you're paying them for an hour and you're paying them to exercise. I'm not against that. Some people need that. The people listening to this, that's not you. Like, you aren't paying to exercise. You're not going to the gym to exercise. If you are just exercising, training out for training, working out for working out's sake, and you haven't got a plan that's not linked, and there's no consistency and no overall goal with your programming, you are wasting your time. Now, if it's someone who's getting off the couch and they're just new at the gym, and maybe some people even listening to this, you started with exercising. Then you found you were getting a little bit better just through hard work. But at some point, you need to take the step up and say, I need to get a coach, I need to write my own program, I need to go online and find some stuff, because otherwise, the repeated stimulus isn't there. The links that Blaine talked about in terms of between each workout and the overall goal isn't there, and you will lose motivation, and that's when you'll program hop more, because you're looking for the next best thing, because you don't really know what the fuck you're doing. So yeah, that's...
That comes back to just having goals, though, doesn't it? End of
Yeah.
the goals and communication. You work back from there, you tick those boxes.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. Right, next one. I'll not let you rabbit on about this too long, because I know that it's something you've wrote about recently. So imposter syndrome. So what is it, Blaine? What's your thoughts? Talk to people through it, and then just how can we link this to the lads and lasses that's listening? Is how might it affect them in the gym, maybe it's in their life, and then how can you overcome it? So I've read your blog on this, so I'll let you go.
So for me, I think it's feeling like an imposter in any situation where, although it might not be the case, you feel like you're inferior in that environment. So if you relate that to the gym, you might, so like you say in the gym up at, was it McVicker's or something that? Like you going in there, if you've got imposter syndrome, you might go, shit, I don't feel like I belong here. These guys have been doing this for years. I'm going to look stupid if I do X, Y, and Z, and then never come back. So for me, that's a variation of imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. I think more coaches have this than would probably let on. The ones that are good at bullshitting probably get around it. But for me, I think I've had this for a while. Like it's not through lack of knowing that I have the knowledge. It's just maybe expressing it in certain environments. Mm-hmm. I don't think it ever goes away. It's something you've always got to continuously work on, because there's always going to be another situation where you feel like an imposter. Like you say, there's always somebody stronger. There's always somebody smarter than you as well. Mm-hmm. But it's how you manage that in your own mind. It's a little bit of anxiety as well, isn't it? It's how you manage that in your own mind to get through that. Mm-hmm. And it is almost just backing yourself and trying to forget what others think about you, and just trusting that you can do what you think you can do. Yeah. And being aware that 9 times out of 10 that people around you aren't worried about what you say or what you do at all. Yeah. They're actually inviting you without realizing to communicate with them. Mm-hmm. So there is a little bit of demons involved in all that, which I think we all go through, but it's just trying to back yourself and start something, really, because I think I spoke to you before about my blog. Like I definitely had that imposter syndrome before I tried to write the blog. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was going to be good if I wrote something on imposter syndrome. Yeah. And I guess for me, I get that when people are reading my blog, I'm thinking, shit, what are they thinking about me? Which is rubbish, I know. But it's like, what do they think about me? Do they think I'm good at what I do? And which is all rubbish, but you just got to start somewhere and throw it out there. And you do realize that when you do throw it out there, responses are better than you think and hoped. So yeah, it's just about knowing who your audience is as well. Because I think when I think about my own imposter syndrome, I'll try and relate this to the audience in a bit. But yeah, I think you've got to realize who your audience is and who you're trying to work with. So when I write something, I'm not writing it for the PhD guys or the people who write books. I'm writing it for Jimmy on the sofa, who I can influence with my knowledge. That's so you've got to read your influences, because the people with PhDs aren't going to read my stuff. Jimmy is. Mm-hmm. So you've got to trust in who your audience is. Yeah. I think that's simple. In the gym one might be the simplest one, is don't worry about what other people think of you in the gym. Nobody's judging at all. And if they are, they're a prick. So,
I think there's loads of points. This is what I want to talk about. I think there's loads of lessons and points on this. I think that where to start. I've got loads of little bits that I want to delve into on you. So I think first of all, we'll get to how to deal with it at the end. I guess we'll touch on techniques for it at the end. But I think the first thing for anyone listening, it's not necessarily the gym. I think it could be a meeting at work. It could be a new job. It could be walking into a room and meeting new people. Everyone has different things in life where they maybe not as confident, and they get this imposter thing. And particularly it tends to be more where Blaine's talking about is around. Most often for us, it's like your area of expertise. You maybe question what you're doing. Blaine's talking about as an S&C coach. For me, it might be videos, or even it took me much longer. I wanted to do a podcast for a long time. But what I was trying to do was wait until the perfect time. The perfect time never comes. You've just got to start. And when you get paralysis by overanalysis, if you like, which is when you maybe don't post as much as you should, or you don't get out as much content as you should, I always think that how I try to reframe it for myself with the videos, the writing and everything else that I do is that as much as sometimes if you might worry about one post and it being perfect, or one blog or whatever else, that's only a problem if you only ever do one post or one blog. if you're consistent and you put out a lot of content and you're doing it over time, you've got an opportunity then to paint a bigger picture about yourself, and all of a sudden each individual piece doesn't have as much weight in terms of both the person's opinion and on your own mental stress or the amount of bandwidth that it takes up to put it out, because you realise that it's just one brick on the wall, and that means that then over time you can get better at putting bricks on the wall, but also that one person doesn't look at a wall and go, fucking hell, there's that one brick, that's shit. They look at the whole wall to get an impression of what's going on. And I think for me that really helped, and for young PTs or anyone out there in any industry, when you start your own social media platforms, or when you're just trying to get yourself out there, or even like when you're going into a gym, new exercises, there's always going to be one exercise that you're just not as good at. Most people, if you say, can you squat, bench and deadlift, chin-ups, dips, there's always something most people aren't as good at and they're a little bit self-conscious about and they need help with. But people don't judge you. You're not going in the gym and doing that exercise all session, every session. It's the bigger picture and about improving. So I think that's massive, first of all. But one thing I want to ask you, Blaine, which is what I want to say is, do you think, a little bit of playing devil's advocate with you, do you think that you might have imposter syndrome or you've framed it as that because you just making yourself uncomfortable quite a lot because you're trying to grow? You've done loads of reading, loads of seminars, loads of progression in your career and in your life. You've travelled about loads. You've probably been put into more situations than several other people. If you'd stayed in the same place and you'd never done any of this, you might not feel that way. You'd be very comfortable. So what do you think about that? Do you think that could be maybe as a part of it?
I guess it is that. So you maybe getting over the hurdle in every country you've been in. So you feel like you're having to start a game with the group you're working with. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure on that. I guess it's not really the countries. I guess I've got all the knowledge. I truly believe I've got knowledge in there. It's just the expression of it. I think that's going to be the most. It's actually the doing part of it. You know what I mean? So when you look at your blogs and things like that, I read, it was the old James Smith. He said the best blog he ever did was his first one.
Right.
So yeah, so it's just starting. It's just starting, and it was probably the best one and the shittest one he said he's did.
Yeah.
Because it was the shittest one he's ripped, but it was the best one because it was a start.
Yes.
But I do flip that as well, and I think that maybe working in 3 different continents should help my imposter syndrome because I've experienced more things and I should be better balanced because of that. Mm-hmm. But I guess I've always probably worked certainly within my comfort zone at times and not really pushed out as much as I could. So I guess there's one of them things where it's hard to determine why you do something in a certain scenario mm-hmm. at certain times and other times you don't. So there's no really right or wrong sort of answer for that. But mm-hmm. I think it just happens when it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think relating it to the gym for a lot of lads as well, I think that I talk about this a lot, about the challenge. So like having a challenge in your work or having something that makes you nervous, kind of helping you overcome this to build belief. The more opportunities you can put into your training and into your life, and training's the easiest place to put it, this will help you build self-belief and self-confidence, whether it's learning a new exercise, having a really tough set, cardio challenges, whatever it is. Having those in your workouts then gives you an opportunity to overcome a little bit of adversity that really you've created yourself, so that then when you have, whether it's walking into a new meeting, whether it's have a meeting a new client, whether it's going to a new continent, like you, indirectly these things can help build up your confidence and help kind of maybe reframe any fear and any not necessarily fears, but any nervousness around your own level of competence, if you like, and reframe it as actually maybe I'm nervous because this is just a new situation, it's a new content, everything that was spoke about there. So yeah, I think that's really good, mate. I'm sure that everyone to some degree will have struggled with that or felt these things at some point, whether they've given it that label of imposter syndrome. I haven't necessarily would say call it that before, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I know a lot of people do, but I think for me, I from a very young age work with loads of different coaches, and I've always just, whenever I get nervous, I just think, oh well, after I'm nervous it'll be good. Like, it's just like a stupid thing, like, do you know what I mean? I'll be like, so I think I've probably never, I think that everyone can benefit from just, when you have a feeling, try to recognize what it is. Like, just take a moment to pause. Try meditation and stuff helps, but then also say, like, what's on the other side of it, and maybe then when you do get nervous or when you're a bit anxious about something, you can reframe it as, that's just because I care about it. I'm excited. Instead of I'm anxious, I'm excited. And also knowing that maybe on the other side of that, there's a positive. But here's the thing: if you don't go into that dragon's lair and slay the dragon, as they say, and if you don't enter the cave, if you like, if you don't do the thing, you won't get the positive reinforcement of the feeling on the other side. So if you aren't actually doing that regularly, there isn't going to be a positive feedback loop to then the next time that nervousness comes, you're not going to want to conquer it because you don't know what the feeling is. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I just think if you do miss those opportunities, you miss the opportunity to feel and learn and grow.
Yes.
So every time you do push yourself into an uncomfortable situation, even if you don't learn anything from the person, you'll learn something about yourself, which will make it better next time.
Fantastic. What would you say, mate, from your point of view, to sum up that with imposter syndrome and nerves, and maybe even competing powerlifting as well? When I was reading your stuff on that last night, what tips would you have for people, both mentally, physically, in the gym? I guess. What tips would you give people if you give them some tips on how to deal with that?
I'd say it's only one snapshot in time when you think about it. So you worry about it for hours beforehand, but that actual inception of the imposter piece where you think you'll be is only 10 seconds in time. So, but you say the glory afterwards of having gone through it. There's hours before and hours afterwards, but that one moment you just got to get through. So I honestly, the things I've done where I've overcome it, like the powerlifting, where maybe it is just a thing where it's just in front of large crowds and people, it's just go do it. Because you say the thrill of it, it's like bungee jumping. You're shitting yourself for a while, but when you do it, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is one of them mindfulness pieces where afterwards you're just golden. So I'd just say do it. What's the worst that can happen? Like nothing's going to happen, because as I've said before, the only issue in this whole imposter area is yourself. Nobody else has any idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So whatever you do in that scenario, they'll never have any idea. So you just do you.
I remember actually when I started this podcast, and as much as it looks like I started very smoothly every time, there's a lot of times when I'm in front of the camera and I'm trying to get my first 10 seconds, for me, the first 30 seconds is the hardest. That's why, I've said this before in videos, that's why I say the same thing all the time. I say, yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically trained, because it settles us down right away, so I know what I'm always saying. I think people struggle with how to start. So whenever I do a live video, just say that and it gets us into it right away. But with the podcast in particular, I'd be like, the podcast, here's this episode, here's whatever. And I was like, fucking hell, what am I talking about today? Like, just like, you don't know. And it's like, but something that someone said, which I think was a great piece of advice, and it's like what you were saying there, just to finish off, is that no one else knows what you're planning on saying because it's in your head. So you can just, no one knows what it could have been or what you could have said because it's you that's doing it. It's your work. So when you're creative and you're true to yourself, you just do your own thing and then you just blend it and go with it and you'll refine it over time. And like I said as well before, think of adding bricks on the wall. It's never final. As long as you keep going back and putting another one on, no one ever looks at it and goes, oh, that last brick was shit. You're just continually building, and then that's what gives you the big picture. So.
I think it's don't feel like the imposter, be the imposter. Just be that person, because if you be, then at least you're doing it.
Yes. Awesome. Good stuff. Right. Next one, mate. So perseverance and kind of your journey to where you are now. So for anyone that's maybe, I think particularly with COVID, there's a lot of people change jobs, there's a lot of people starting new careers. I thought this is kind of why I want to touch on this, is there's been a lot of upheaval in everyone's life all over the world at the minute, wherever you are. Less so for you in New Zealand. I think you've handled it a little bit better than us. But for anyone that's maybe starting a new job, that's struggling with work at the minute, when you were juggling these 4 jobs that we talked about earlier, you were doing one internship with Yorkshire Cricket, you were doing one internship at Leeds, doing the S&C. You had your 2 jobs as well. What kept you going? Like, how did you? Yeah, just what kept you going? Why did you persevere? And what advice would you have for people that's maybe going through a tough time, or maybe he's got bigger goals but they're not quite there yet?
I think for me was having that goal is key. I think there's everybody over the world, whether it's now or in 10 years' time, will go through shit periods. But as long as you've got a goal that you're working towards, it helps you get through the shit period. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to try and enjoy what you're doing right now. So if you enjoy, like I enjoyed the internships, I enjoyed learning about strength and conditioning. I actually enjoyed working with people. So if you enjoy what you're doing, it helps you through the shit time as well.
Yeah.
I'd probably say if you're not enjoying what you're doing through a shit time, maybe it's trying to do something else what you're enjoying as well. But I think the thing that made me persevere with what I was doing was definitely the enjoyment, and knowing that it might not have worked out for me the way it did, but I knew that I had certain goals, and if I hadn't got an internship then, or a job then, or X, Y, and Z, I would have done something else and got a job then, or did something else. So it's having those backup plans and sort of plan B's and C's ready to go, which I'm kind of going through myself at the minute. So you've got to always plan for A, B, and C, but always just look at worst case scenario, because at the end of the day, I think most people's worst case scenarios, they're tough, but there's always a way out of them. So you just got to always try and stay positives in the shit times. So
having a goal, maybe preparing for the worst but hoping for the best, so you've kind of got all angles covered.
And pretty cliche that, but it's simple stuff, isn't it? You can't really hope for much more and dream for much more, because if you do, it might not happen. So
would you say for you, I'm very black and white. I think several people have said that I lack emotion on some things, and I think that's because for me there's like a way to do things and there's a way to not do stuff. It's not necessarily my way or the highway, but I think I lack empathy with people that say they have a goal and then they don't do everything to achieve it. Yes, everyone's got problems. Everyone's got, I mentioned this in the last episode, everyone's got family, friends, jobs. You know, I think for me, I've known far too many people like yourself who have just made it happen. And it's not to say like, oh, if you can't make it happen, you don't want your goal enough. I think that sometimes that can be a little bit obnoxious. That isn't possible for everyone. But what you have to ask yourself is what are you prepared to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? And then actually go and do that. Like, I think there's some stuff, I'm not going to be able to quote the study even fucking who said it, but there's a lot of stuff recently where people are saying that people are getting the same endorphins, the same dopamine hits and releases in their brain from talking about their goals as opposed to actually going and achieving them. So when people talk to me on the phone, the lads in the inner circle do a 15-minute call every quarter, they're always mega hyped up because you're talking about a goal, you're talking about achieving it, you've got that mental thing, where do you think you're going mentally then at the time? So you could use that when you're going through a tough time and you need a boost, you could think about achieving the goal. But also why I want to say that is that it's great talking about it, but then you've got to fucking actually walk the walk and go and do it. And that's when it gets hard. But that'll be also, when we've talked about everything else, that's when you get that overcoming adversity, that's when you get that self-belief, that's when you get the most growth, is from actually doing it, getting out and setting the plan and going after it.
I don't think you can do that on your own as well, though. So like you say, you've got to have that network of people around you, your friends and family, that you I'm not just going to tell you my goals, but I want you to help me. Can we talk? Can we just find good people around you to help you get out of that bad time as well? Yes. Because if you speak to Doris in the cake shop, she'll give you an idea that you haven't thought about before. Mm-hmm. Just bounce ideas off people, and it just might give you another angle. You might change 180 degrees direction on something just because of one person said.
Yeah, everyone can teach you something for sure. I think I've worked with loads of different business coaches, loads of different coaches for bodybuilding, for training, and all you're looking for is that one golden nugget, that one good idea off each coach that you actually take with you and move forward. And you can listen and be present in every conversation that you have with people, but you can take everything on board, but you don't have to take it forward. You can listen and you can take just the parts that you like, and then you can move on, kind of thing. And I think that that's a great way to look at stuff, is that sometimes someone else will have a completely different angle, whether it's because they're just, I always think, people that work a standard 9 to 5. I've got one of my best mates who's a mechanic, just lives day to day, but it's very happy. So like when I might sometimes get stressed about stuff, his attitude will be completely different. He's like, fucking hell, you don't have to go to work. Like, you're not even working properly, but you're getting stressed or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So there's always a different point of view, and that can sometimes get you through as well.
So there's a great book called Pig Wrestling. I think I've read it. It's more business, but it talks about viewing things through other people's eyes and getting a reframing on things. So like if I try and overcome I'm trying to persevere through my shit times, if I'm trying to do that through my own frame, I'm only ever going to see a certain direction. But if I've got people to talk to me from different viewpoints and they're looking through their frame and they're giving me advice through their frame, then you've got 10 people's advices, which is better than one. So I'd definitely say that's a big thing. Just ask people, talk to people to help you through that time, because 10's better than one.
That's a really good point. One thing I do with that, which I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but I think I think I started doing this when I was younger, particularly when I went to uni, was looking at myself from my own point of view, but imagine it in like 10 years time. So what I would try to say to myself is, what would me looking back in 10 years tell me to do now? Whether it's introducing myself to someone, putting your hand up to answer the question when you're in the lecture theatre at uni, or volunteering for that opportunity where at the time you're like, oh, you're a bit short up, like I don't want to do it, and then you actually, but there could be something there. And I think that's a good way to look. What would your future self tell you, to do, and try to see it from that point of view if you can. Awesome. So one thing I think it links in nicely there, Ben, actually, when you talk about what's next. So again, touching on friends, so if you messaged me about sort of your own changes and stuff that you're going through at the minute, so you're looking at possibly leaving New Zealand and possibly on the next thing in terms of coaching. So what's next for you, mate? Where are you going to go? What's the plan? What are you looking into?
I'm just praying. That's next. Just praying and see what the crack is. The 4 years here in New Zealand's come to an end of August. Decided not to try and push for a visa and renew my contract again because it's probably due a change anyway. But with that comes unemployment. So at the minute, be back home with the parents who I haven't seen in 5 years, so it'll be great anyway. Be back there for a bit. But more realistically, just looking to go back to the UK. That seems to be where I'll probably end up. Just looking for employment. Don't know whether I probably do want to go back into strength and conditioning, but I do, like you're saying about like looking through a different lens. I want to try and look into a different lens now where I don't know if I want to work 50 hours a week. Behind a group of athletes or behind a desk. I maybe want to try and create something like my own personal training business or work for a personal training company, something like that. So trying to keep all options open at the minute. I'd rather work somewhere where I can have a good lifestyle and live better with the dog rather than go and work somewhere 60 hours a week for shit money.
Yeah.
So it's chasing lifestyle, but that might be Asia somewhere. But probably more realistically be the UK. So trying to put some plans in place for that at the minute, which I'm pretty lucky where I've got employment. I'm pretty lucky I've got family to go to. So my perseverance through that won't be as troubling as some other people, but there'll definitely be some hurdles along the way there for sure.
I think that it's almost like the questions I'm going to ask you, Blaine, because that's good. It rolls. I think what you touched on for lifestyle there, I think that the more you get into stuff, I think everyone needs that apprenticeship phase, if you like, where you're putting a lot of work in, you learn a lot, like you've done now. I think you've fair to say you've fucking more than done that. You've flogged it to death in terms of the hours that you've done. But your lessons in terms of like the lifestyle, I think not a lot of people understand that approach of enjoying your work and having the lifestyle to go with it. Particularly PTs, something I always say to the lads I see in the gyms and that is like, personal training's easy to get into a bad routine of just seeing the hour in front of you. And this can be anyone who's got their own business. You sometimes just see the hour in front of you. And what I mean by that is that you think, well, I can get 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever you charge an hour, pound an hour to do this next hour. And because it's your own business, you maybe think, well, I need to be working hard. I should always do the next hour. And what that means is that you're working in the business, not on the business, as they say, which means you're not going to grow as much. But also when you're doing that, it just limits you so much. And I think that particularly in the UK, people are very competitive. And I think that like there's this sort of like, I don't know what it is, keeping up with the Joneses, if you like, where people are kind of looking at each other and trying to earn more money than the next person. Certainly when I spend time in Australia, it's much less the case, where people are more like what you're saying about the lifestyle. For me, I learned, fortunately, at a very young age, that it was much more about how I made money and what I'd done. And I love the fact that I'm my own boss. I'm helping loads and loads of people all over the world. And it makes us happier, gives us a much better sense of fulfillment, because monetary goals, a lot of the time, when you achieve them, you just have another bigger monetary goal. You just think, right, I've earned X amount a year. Now what am I going to do next year? I'm just going to earn a little bit more the next year. It's that hedonic treadmill that I've spoken about before, where you're just continually chasing a goal that's further in front of you. So I think for a lot of people, and what Blaine's talking about now, which I really respect him for, is looking at your lifestyle as well, and like what you want to get out of stuff. Would you say you've learned that travelling, mate? That was the last question, really, your lessons from travelling around the world. So would you say that's something you've learned from travelling, or you've learned maybe from running yourself into the ground, from doing too many hours? How have you learned that? What's made you get to that point?
Yeah. So there's a bit of both there. There's a quote Matthew McConaughey wrote in his book as well, that there's the process, and then you get where you want to go, and then it's like, right, shit, what's the next process? Mm-hmm. So getting there doesn't exist. It's always about enjoying the process, where the bigger things come from. For me, if I think, well, I lived in England, which living in England's living in England, isn't it? It is what it is, living in cities. But living in Hong Kong, I mean, to be honest, a bit of me, I wish I had to stay there for a bit longer to give that bit more of a go. because you're waking up and it's the weather's unbelievable. Like even in winter, it's 17 degrees, the sun's out. You go for a cold coffee. You travel down to the south of the island. You have a beer by the beach, and then even in New Zealand here, like walking along the coastline with the dogs, couple of hours driving. I'm in the mountains with the snow, and those experiences are something that I wanna. That's my process almost. So the job's in that, but I want to experience more of that stuff. So what I'm looking for next, I don't really want to move back to the UK if I'm being honest. I'd rather be in the sticks in Asia somewhere, training people just to earn enough that I need to survive, but then enjoying the rest of my day and seeing stuff that other people's eyes don't see. I know that's not the formal process of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to fucking grow up and get married and have kids. Fuck that. Absolutely fuck that. Honestly, that might sound a bit selfish, but I have so much more I want to see and do in my life before I do any of that stuff. And that is the process of what we spoke about. Just I want to see something new. I want to see something different, some new country, some new area, learn from some more people. Just it's just a better life, and you want to sit down when you're 65, 70 and go, right, what the fuck's happened? I don't want to say that I've lived in fucking what, I don't know, I can't really say anywhere bad here. I've lived there for 30 years and I've done this, and I'm like, well, right, that's a good story over beer, isn't it?
Yeah. You don't. I've talked about this the other day. You don't regret. You don't regret the things you did do. You'll regret the things that you missed, or the opportunities you missed, or the thing that you always wanted to do. And I think that having that, realizing that you have got the opportunity to do most stuff, whether it's moving country, changing jobs. And it's good because I think not everyone, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because I think we're very similar in that regard with reviews on stuff, and particularly travelling and changing roles and the lifestyle side of things. I think everyone gets to that point eventually. It's just whether or not it's too late, is my opinion on it. I think, on most people anyway, you have got your, like I say, one of my best pals, people might know who this is, like, yeah, I've got some people that'll go to work every day and they're just happy 9 to 5. Drink on a night, drink on a weekend, go to football and that's great. But for most people listening to this podcast, you probably want a little bit more. And when that's the case, don't think about it at all costs. Yes, you might have to put a lot of work in the beginning, but then when you get there, what is it about the process? What is it about this life that you're actually enjoying? Is it specifically helping people? Is it the fulfillment that comes from that? Is it the travel? You don't always love. I do actually love fucking pretty much all my job, but there's still the odd things sometimes. Check-ins, vegetarian fucking diets, right in them, oh my fucking god. But they allow us to love I love the result, or I love helping people along the way. There's always going to be little aspects of your job that you don't like, or things that you have to be willing to do to get there, but you need to learn to enjoy the process and maximize that process as well, which is through being present in it. It's through recording, it's through giving yourself little goals, which we've touched on as well. So awesome. I'm buzzing to see where you go next. Hopefully we can...
I tell you what, it comes back to that perseverance stuff and like worrying times where part of me is like, fuck, I'm fucked here. I have no job. I'm unemployed in 12 weeks. I'm back with the parents. But then on the other hand, it's like, fuck, where's next? Like, give me a visa somewhere.
Yeah. Willed your lobster.
Yeah. It's supposed to be oyster, you told.
Oh, no, man. Great, lad. Right. Quick fire questions to finish, mate. So how this works, I have 8 questions. 4 are pretty fast, 4 are a little bit deeper. I've got some good ones for you. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's go. I'm no good here. Let's go.
Right, lager or ale?
Oh, ale.
You're a big ale. You do like some stupid... I've seen your little cans and stuff that you
put I'm 9 weeks off it, but there's loads of pale ales and little hazy ales that fucking lager shit now. I can't touch it.
Not my scene, that. Oh, I can't do it. This is a funny one for you. City or Liverpool?
Wasn't it Gary Neville said that it's like asking who would you rather shag, your mum or your grand, for that question? he said he couldn't answer. He's like, nah, I can't answer that question. So
I'm definitely using that for the clip for the episode. That's 100%.
Gary Neville said that. I'll take it though. So yeah, no answer there.
I'm laughing that much at that. So Blaine, you might have figured out, Blaine is a massive Man United fan. That's why when I thought of the questions asked, I thought I'm putting that in. Brilliant. Next one. Would you rather have big arms or big legs?
Oh, big legs.
Big legs. That's what the last person answered that as well. And then, do you prefer being the coach or the athlete?
Coach.
Well, that makes sense, I guess. Right, and then want the 4 longer ones, I guess. These will be interesting for you, I think. What is the worst place you have visited?
Shit. I don't know. It's got to be somewhere in England. I, I'm going to call it out there. I think I've been there once for like a cricket game with the academy at Yorkshire. And I was like, what? Oh, nah, maybe. Yeah, I'm like, why am I here? Grimsby.
Grimsby.
I
We've got any
don't know.
listeners from Grimsby?
Yeah, I
Please
don't know.
don't hit the unsubscribe button. Hit
Yeah, I
subscribe.
don't know. Yeah, I don't even know if there's anywhere else in the world. Like, genuinely, everywhere I've been in the world, like apart from England, lived and visited, I've went there for a reason. So I would never pick to go to somewhere shit. You know what I mean? Apart from that street in San Francisco, which has got more junkies than I've ever seen in my life, that wasn't very pleasant. But
Really?
yeah, but yeah, that's some of those little towns around that east coast of England are fucking no good, are they? Who lives there?
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is why I'm trying to gather information so that when I finally do make this world tour, I've got a list of places not to go. So Grimsby will be off the list. So that's a good one.
I'm going to end up living there.
Best place visited.
And I know I say New York. I absolutely love New York. I spent 7 days there, and I literally crawled the whole of Manhattan on my feet, and I thought it was unbelievable. I was more speechless daily there of the things I saw than anywhere else I've been.
It's world class in it.
I've been to fucking Grand Canyon. I've been to glaciers here on a helicopter, but fuck that. New York was like, fuck shit, that's good. Yeah, so I'd go New York.
New York's one of them places I always think like New York for me. New York and Barcelona is 2 places where at some point I always want to say that I lived there. I'd like to do like 6 months or a year in both of those places. And actually, cool story, my tattoo on my right arm, which is the 2 wolves story. I got that in New York. So anyone that's wondering, I got that there. I got tattooed for 3 days in a row because I had to get it done in New York at the tattoo convention with my mate. And my arm swelled up so much after being tattooed 3 days in a row. I was in unbelievable pain, but it was worth it.
What, who needs hypertrophy training? Just get needles on your arm.
It swelled up loads. Worst piece of advice, mate. So whether that's something that you think's been debunked, something that you just don't like people to say, or something that personally has been said to you, what is the worst piece of advice?
Tell you what, that's not an easy question, is it? Because you don't tend to try and remember the shittest pieces of advice you've ever been given.
I've enjoyed asking people this one. Most people have been struggling with this one.
I don't know. What's the worst piece of advice I've ever been given? Fuck knows. Yeah, I honestly don't know. Yeah, I can't give you an answer quick enough on that.
Well, we'll tell you what. We'll let you think.
Yeah.
We'll give you 30 seconds. I think with this one, I'll cover for you. I'll give you a little bit of time here. I think why people struggle with this is what Blaine says, that you don't internalize bad feedback, or you shouldn't, and that's a good thing. How I would look at this is maybe I think probably the attitude I have is sometimes when people say stuff and then I'll challenge it, and sometimes you'll hear a piece of bad advice and you'll go out to prove it wrong, or maybe you'll like you think there's loads of examples. I don't want to say what mine would be, because I think in a future episode I'll probably get people to ask me these questions. So I don't want to say what mine is. But yeah, worst piece of advice. So, any ideas yet?
I don't know. I don't know whether I've been told this personally, but I've read this a few times, or I've seen a few people say never take a step back with your career. Like, I think that's absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do sometimes? Like, sometimes you got to take 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward, type of thing.
Brilliant.
I wouldn't say that's advice I've ever got, but shit, that's stumped me. You can
Yes.
see how uneasy I am with that.
There's loads of little quotes and shit stuff like that people say and they fucking share it on Instagram, and it's like it's just not true.
I actually have a good think about that. That's quite interesting. I'm gonna think about that.
Worst piece of advice. I think it's a good one, and what I would say to everyone listening to that is see that worst piece of advice possibly as an opportunity to maybe flip it on its head, or like what can you learn from it? And that's why I like asking people it, because I think everyone maybe has something. I think because I'm just a fucking annoying, challenging little cunt, that I just think of like stuff that people have said to us, and I'll be like, think that's true, do you? Well, fucking see about that. Do you know what I mean? So like,
sometimes that's not advice. That's just conversations you're having.
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to look at people in my life who I've had advice from, like mentors and stuff, and I can't envisage them ever giving me a really shit piece of advice that I've been like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Class. Right then. Last one. Best piece of advice.
This is to do with coaching.
Can be anything. Can be coaching. Can be life. Whatever's best for you.
For me, I never forget this quote, and it's probably what I say to most people when I say this. This has been my career. It comes back to one guy at Yorkshire, where we sat down. I didn't even know his name. I think he played for England at the time, and he was like, "Look, we're cricketers. Like, not really. We don't care about our squat. We don't care about our med ball throws or anything else. But we're cricketers." And I think that's just stuck with me the whole way through. So it is the context every time, no matter who you work with. It's all about them. And it's what they want. It's their program. It's their goals. It's not about you. You're only there to help them. But I think that's, so whatever I've done, whether it's working with other members of staff, working with athletes, even chatting to friends and stuff, when people need your help, it's not about you. It's all about them. So always think about that. That's always stuck with me.
Awesome. Love it. Brilliant.
Nice. Fucking worst piece of advice.
Well, that's it, mate. Thank you very much for coming on.
That's annoyed me. I have no idea.
And no, you can think about it again in the future. But if anyone's got any questions, anything that want to ask Blaine, we'll put his social media profiles in the links below. You can go look at his blog, you can look at his Instagram. You can hit him up if you know of any S&C jobs going in some far-fetched areas of the world. But that was brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. I really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Give me a job in Grimsby.
Awesome. Yeah, really enjoyed talking to you.
Get me a job in Grimsby.
Cheers. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Dad. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers, bro.
You've been listening to Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread the word.